Okay, good evening, class. I'm Dr. Ang. I'm going to deliver 3 lectures under this module, GC 36. Can all of you hear me? Very hard to get a response. If you can,
Yes, we can hear
all
you.
can hear. All right, let's press
Yes.
on. Okay, let's press on. There are 30 of you out there. Okay, personality in the news. Personality, whether you like it or not, the personality is always featured in the news, if you like. And when you are a counselor, when you see a patient or a client, the client has a personality. In other words, we all have a personality. And in order to understand your client well, it is important to understand his or her personality. So the next 3 lectures, we will focus on personality theories. What make a person tick? Okay, what the person's strengths and weaknesses, likes and dislikes, and what motivates the person, what drives the person, and how can we help the person, especially if there are personality issues involved, in the form of personality difficulties, personality problems, personality disorder. The 3rd lecture will cover personality disorder under DSM-5. DSM stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association, 5th edition. 5th edition, and that's DSM-5. So when we talk about DSM-5, that's the American Classification of Mental Illness. Now, these are some of the recent books I've read and also recent interview I've watched, and you can see that personality feature prominently. You take a look at Demi Moore, for example. She recently wrote a book, Inside Out. She spoke about her struggle, her difficulties, her years of growing up with her caregivers, and all the difficulties she faced. And same for Gisele Bündchen. Gisele Bündchen also went through a lot of tough time before she became a famous, well-known model in the world. From Brazil, and how she overcame her difficulties to become a successful person. She had panic attacks when she was in her early 20s. So why would a person develop panic attack? And one of the reasons people develop panic attack is unresolved conflict. When you have unresolved conflict, pulling you apart. I'm using a rubber band to represent unresolved conflict. When you have unresolved conflict pulling you apart, you are prone to panic attack. And many of my patients come to me in their midlife years, during the midlife period. They actually talk about the conflicts, the underlying conflicts. And many of these people in their mid-40s or late 40s developing panic attack. And I have to help them look for the underlying unresolved conflicts, because conflicts unresolved potentially can lead to panic attack. And inevitably, when you have unresolved conflict, you look for values, beliefs, principles of life of this person, and you want to know why is this person conflicted, what are her values or his values, and what is driving her, what is motivating her, what is propelling her forward, and what is pulling her backwards. And then you begin to understand why at the age of 45 a person can develop panic attack. Okay. And Lady Gaga was interviewed by Oprah Winfrey in 2020, and she spoke about her struggle, her 5 years with fibromyalgia, her years of isolation when she was young, when she was a child, how she was raped repeatedly when she was 19, and how it all contributed to her personality, and how in the end, how one psychiatrist say, hey, this is not just fibromyalgia. This is not just bodily pain. This is psychological, unresolved psychological issues. So help her using a method of treatment, dialectical behavioral therapy. You will know more about it as you go along, to help her come to terms with herself, with her past, how to live with the present, and how to move forward for the future. So these are famous people, and many want to know what they can do to resolve some of the untidy parts of their personality, the negative side of life, how to take care of them, and then how to move on. Okay. Naomi Osaka suffers from social anxiety and depression, and she withdrew from the French Open and even Wimbledon. She took herself out because she said she was not ready. In Paris, I was already feeling vulnerable and anxious, so I thought it was better to exercise self-care and skip the press conferences. You know, here is a person, a well-known tennis player, seated among the top in the world, yet dare not face the press because of her social anxiety, because of her insecurity and low self-esteem, and avoided facing the press. So when she won the first game during the French Open, she didn't face the press, and it was mandatory, it was compulsory for players to face the press. It was part of the contract. And because she didn't face the press and she broke the contract, she was fined $15,000 US. And then she decided, that's it, I want to pull out of the competition. So you see here, what were the underlying personality issues that make her prone to depression, prone to social anxiety, and fearful of press conference, fearful of speaking publicly. So as a counselor, as a psychiatrist, we must be curious. You must be curious to know what's going on in the mind of Naomi Osaka. What made her have all these fears of facing the public, fears of facing press conference. In fact, whenever she played in an important game, she cut herself off from the noise by wearing earplug. She plugged her ear just to cut herself off. Yeah? And then concentrated on the game. There, you see, you will notice I'm wearing earphones, so that helps dull my social anxiety. She cannot stand people commenting from the side, criticizing her from the side, watching her play. She just can't stand because of her fragile self-esteem. When you have a fragile self-esteem and you're emotionally insecure, a negative comment can floor you. A negative comment can send you spiral down. Therefore, as a counselor, as a psychiatrist, we want to know what is wrong with Naomi Osaka. And this is just an example. Your client may come with unresolved conflict, either from the past or present, and then you need to help the person resolve those conflicts. And that's where personality theories come in, understanding the person. So I go back to Giselle again. Why did she develop panic attack? Let's watch a video clip, and let's see whether you can see the video clip. You see the awareness, the interest in wanting to get well, the self-care, yoga, meditation, and then taking stock of her life. And fortunately for her, she's married to a very secure man, a man who is from a very secure family himself, and able to give her a lot of sense of security. And that's why in the end, she got herself sorted out. Now, so the key question is, why the conflict? Where was the conflict? The conflict was she was identified very early in a small town in Brazil at the age of 14 in a shopping mall by an agent who was by you know they call it a talent scouter who actually identified her. One reason was her height and her look, signed her up, and from this little village in Brazil, she was sent to the capital, Sao Paulo, and there she was trained almost overnight to be a model, and then she was actually asked to you know join the so-called group of young adults, and as a teenager she was struggling. She had difficulty trying to fit in this feminine world, because in this book she wrote about herself being a tomboy playing volleyball at the beach and very tomboyish, and now suddenly trying to fit into this feminine world. She was conflicted. She had her struggles, and that was the reason for the early panic attack she experienced in her early 20s. But as she got used to integrating herself, adapting herself to the group, and coming out with her own philosophy of life, vis-a-vis, while interacting with her own husband, she became stronger and stronger, emotionally more and more mature and secure. And therefore, the panic attack just go away. The panic attack disappeared. So the lesson is knowing one's personality is very important, and knowing how to fix it. In some areas we can fix it. Of course, in some areas we can't, right? Then if we can't, we got to accept what we can't change. So that's about personality. So for the rest of the 3 lectures, the scope will be definition, ways of describing personality, and then the 5 approaches: biological approach, psychodynamic approach, humanistic approach, behavioral approach, cognitive approach. One by one, we would spend time dwelling on it so that you become an effective counselor, equipped to size up the personality of a person, and using the approach that you are most well versed in. And then we will have the DSM-5 classification of personality disorders. And then we will spend some time talking about how do we help people with personality disorders. So learning objectives, you need to know common personality theories. I will be sharing with you 5 main ones. And then be aware of the factors that influence the development of personality. The early years, influence of school, influence of friends, your occupational exposure, your work life, and the people you meet in your life. All these are factors that can influence the development of personality. And lastly, know how a client's personality influences his interaction with others, his psychological and behavioral interaction with others. Because we don't exist alone, we exist with other people. So the self and others, how we get along with others, is also a reflection of who we are. So it's not just you, you also take into consideration your relationship with others. So we will go according to course content, how well I integrate theory and practice, and how applicable it is to counseling. Then about myself as a lecturer, how I impart knowledge, how I explain concepts and information, and how I create an environment conducive to learning. It is not easy over Zoom. It is much easier in a classroom setting. I can see all of you. I can ask questions. I can see the response from you, and I can have an interactive session. So we make do with this Zoom session. Please jot down the questions you want to ask me. I will reserve 10 minutes after each lecture to answer your questions. Personal learning journey, a level of commitment, how I stimulate your curiosity, how you apply your learning, and whether you are satisfied with the overall quality of teaching. Okay. These two books are recommended by me. The one on the left is the latest, 11th edition, okay, by Duane Schultz and Sydney Ellen Schultz. And then the one on the right is the 10th edition, 2020, just came out last year. Very readable, very easy to understand and apply, okay? Now, my 5 approaches, they are picked up from some of these books. Some are from my own clinical experience. And you can always add on to the 5 approaches. It doesn't mean the 5 approaches are cast in stone. They are just an introduction. This is GC. GC level is an introductory level. Okay. Why do we learn personality theories? So that you have enough tools in your toolkit to help you understand and manage your patient. Understanding and managing your patient. You can't manage unless you understand. You can't understand unless you have theories to help you understand. And then when you have enough theories, then you can say, I want to use behavioral theory. I want to use psychodynamic theory. I think this patient, I need a cognitive approach. I think this patient, I need Abraham Maslow's approach, humanistic approach. So you have tools, and from the 5 approaches, you pick what is suitable for the patient. In our local context, most of us are eclectic. E-C-L-E-C-T-I-C. E-C-L-E-C-T-I-C. The word is eclectic. Eclectic means you combine several theories in understanding your patient. You don't have to be purely psychodynamic or purely behavioral, but you can combine these two and try to understand your patient. And then the word is called eclectic. Eclectic approach. When we say an eclectic approach, here is eclectic approach. Eclectic. Okay, let me put eclectic. This is the word eclectic approach. Eclectic approach. It depends on, yeah, there you are, eclectic approach. Eclectic means more than one theory, more than one approach. Okay. Now, my understanding of mental well-being, mental wellness, is in the form of 4 aspects: social, physical, mental. For those of you who are religious, 4A, religious. If you don't have a religion, 4B, spiritual. Spiritual means any activity, any hobby that can lift your spirit. Lift your spirit. It's called spiritual, if you don't have a religion. Now, why I use the 4 legs? It is simple. If one leg is missing, the chair is wobbly. You cannot have well-being. Let's say number 2, if you're physically unhealthy, if you can't even walk more than 100 meters, how can you have well-being? You will be handicapped by your inability to walk, right? Or number 1, social. You are well-read, you are very intelligent, but you just can't socialize with people. People find you a snob. People can't get along with you. People get umbraged by you, umbraged by your way of life. And then they don't you don't have a healthy social life, and that's very hard to be well in the context of modern world. You cannot just be a hermit. And look at number 3, mental. What is mental health? Mental health is taking care of your mental faculty, thinking clearly, feeling appropriately, and behaving optimally, and that's mental health. And then, of course, spiritual, we just define. So when you have any of these legs missing, it is very hard to have well-being. Of course, a lot of people don't pay attention to leg number 4. They are okay with 1, 2, 3. That's fine. They still think they are all right. If they sit on one side of the chair, it won't topple, right? But from my clinical experience, when a person has these 4 aspects covered, the person tends to be very secure, very high in esteem, because the legs are very stable and the patient or the person feels very complete and clear and confident. Okay, so that's about well-being. Now, everyone has a story. Everyone has a story. So when you see your client, tell yourself, this client has a story. I need to know about the story. Okay, I need to understand this person well. So you need to know the traits, the tendency of this person. Traits, for example, if you are very quiet, you are introverted, that's a trait already. You listen more than you talk. You don't like to talk. There's this trait of yours. Or you are a perfectionist. Everything you must make sure is perfect. And then you get affected when it's not perfect. So there is a tendency to over control, tendency to over organize, over thinking, overthink, tendency to overthink. And these are what we call tendencies. And then there is a pattern. There's a pattern of behavior. After a period of time, one can see a pattern. Example, procrastination. Some people perpetually delay doing things until the last minute, and that's called a pattern of procrastination. And then you have moral, ethical, or religious beliefs. It is my belief that beliefs shape behavior. In the end, how we behave depends on our beliefs. All right, moral, ethical, and religious beliefs. It shapes, beliefs shape our behavior. So if you add up all these 3, you are either adaptive or maladaptive. If you are adaptive, well done. You are able to cope with life. And whatever it is, you have a story to tell. So as counselor, let's listen to our clients' story. Many of them are dying to tell us their story. They come to see us, they want to talk about their unresolved conflict. They want to talk about what is in their memory store. They want to talk about what is hidden in their unconscious. So we listen and we decide whether it's maladaptive or adaptive. It's maladaptive, we help them to be adaptive. So remember, this is everyone has a story. Now, the maladaptive part is where they come and see us. If they are adaptive, they don't have to see us. They don't have to see counselor. They don't have to see psychiatrist. It's only when they are maladaptive, right? When they are maladaptive, they need help. And then our job as counselors, as psychiatrists, is to make them adapt using whatever traits, patterns, beliefs they have. Okay, there you are. Maladaptive can be bigger than adaptive. Then we need to make sure the maladaptive part is under control. Now, I shift gear a bit. I want to show you a famous Hong Kong singer and movie actress. She was talented, famous in Asia, and especially Hong Kong, Singapore, and Southeast Asia. She developed depression. She was depressed for 3 years. And when she talked about her depression, I felt it was not just depression. I felt there was an underlying personality problem. And this video clip in Chinese spoke about her struggle with depression. And then this one talk about her anger and her selfishness. And in essence, she's saying that how can a selfish person ever be happy? Because all the time it's all about yourself, yourself, yourself. And how can a person who is easily angered be happy? Because you are more you're more reactive than proactive. How can you ever be happy? And then she talked about her wrong values. She talked about her wrong values. Basically, 3 values: chasing after fame, chasing after success, and body appearance. She just wanted to be beautiful, slim and beautiful. In this video clip, she spoke about in 1 week, she can rely only on 2 apples, on 2 apples. So I will show this video clip. I know many of you are not Chinese educated, so I just summarized for you. She felt that she just didn't know how to stop and didn't know how to reflect, didn't know how to take stock of her life. Devoted to her acting, devoted to her singing, and she got burnt out in a way, and she developed depression. But more than depression, I saw a personality issue. So I want you all to do the same. When you're a counselor, if a patient come to tell you and say, "Doctor, I'm very sad," or "Mr. So-and-so, I'm very sad, I'm very tired, I'm very anxious, I can't cope." These are just mere symptoms. Beneath it is a person with those symptoms. And our duty, our job is to find out who is this person. Who is this person? I will play this video clip a bit and I'll pause to explain to you.
我不能停下来，也追求完美当中，也让我常常听不到自己心灵上面的需要。
I was looking for perfectionism, and I was in quest. I was searching for perfectionism. I failed to hear my inner voice, what I really need. My inner needs not met, not taken care of. Why are you feeling that you are so hurt, so negative? Why do you have such negativity? I didn't know how to look at my inner life, my inner self, what I really want. I thought becoming famous, I thought having a lot of money, I thought being beautiful, slim and beautiful would constitute success, right? In my quest for beauty, in my quest for being slim, right? In 1 week, I only take 2 apples. I don't care about my body. You see, the importance of physical health. You may want to look good, but at the expense of your physical health, something is not right with your values. Doesn't matter if I faint, as long as I'm slim, as long as I'm beautiful, it's okay. Now, class, reflect, what kind of values are you having? How can looking good overtake your physical health, right? Be on top of your physical health. If you don't have physical health, no matter how beautiful, how slim, and how fit you are, how slim and how beautiful you are not going to be successful if you are physically not healthy, right? How can I take all these? I keep on piling up. And I decided that's it. I can't take it anymore. Because I wasn't paying attention to my inner life. And during her 3 years of depression, she would sleep in the daytime because she was avoiding responsibilities, avoiding work. And she will wake up at night to look for food to eat and to watch television. So the day, we call it the day-night reversal, and then very atypical of depression. And that was one clue that led me to think that it's more than just depression. There is an underlying personality problem we are talking about, right? And then what helped her in the 3 years? 3 things helped her. She started drawing. When you draw, you are in connection with your inner self, your inner subconsciousness, your unconscious. And she started writing a book. You know, when you write, you have to reflect. You have to think about what is it in life that considered important to you. And you started taking stock. When you write, you're taking stock. You're taking stock of your life, right? You're taking stock of what is important and what is not important. At the end of the 3 years, she wrote a book, which was published. And then third thing, her sister was a Christian, or is a Christian. Her sister took her to church. You see the fourth leg of the chair, the religious leg, the spiritual leg. And she became a Christian. Before that, she was highly superstitious. Because of her insecurity, she believed in fortune teller. She believed in what people say, because she had practically no mind of her own, no clear values. Remember, 7 days, 2 apples. How to have clear values, no clear values of her own. So 3 things help her. So I kept telling my class, these 3 video clips were shown many years ago when I took EC 20, EC 10 on personality theories. This is my 36th course. At least 2 decades ago, it started with course number 1, GC1. Now it's GC 36. So I've been telling people that it's more than just depression. There is an underlying personality problem. But there was no way I could confirm it until she came to Singapore. In 2018, she came to Singapore. She was interviewed by the Straits Times, and she said, I was very insecure. I was chasing after fame and success. I'm more mature now, and religion has changed my values. I'm more relaxed. I'm not so stressed up. I'm more relaxed now. So class, this is an example of how personality, if you are aware of it, can change for the better. From feeling insecure to feeling more secure, right? From feeling immature to be more mature. From tense up to be more relaxed. So she went through, if you like, a kind of transformation. And let's hear from what she's got to say. Some parts are in Chinese, but there are English subtitles now. She wants to look at herself from different lenses, right? So she's saying that I now take a look at my life, not just from one lens, fame, success, and beautiful. I also look from different lenses. I don't set any boundaries for myself anymore. I'm free. I don't constrict myself. I don't restrict myself. And so this is another example of an expanded version, an expanded view of life. And I always say open mind versus closed mind. Now her mind is open mind, open mind versus a closed mind. When she was depressed for that 3 years, her mind was closed with very unclear values, or even distorted values. We can always discover a whole new side to ourselves. And that's why you are in counseling profession. You want to help people. You want to help people discover a new side of themselves. Then indeed, it's worth coming to see you, right? You're their counselor. It's worth coming to see you. Same for people coming to see me. You're my psychiatrist. Help me fix my problem. So besides the problem, there's always an underlying personality issue that we must pay attention. You see, whether you're pretty, ugly, fat, or thin is part of who I am. Earlier on, I told you about Lady Gaga. Her transformation came about when she accepted herself, accepted the negative as well as the positive, accepted the need to change for the better. So they call it radical acceptance. Totally accept something must be done to fix my life. If you don't accept, how do you change? So one of the tasks as a counselor is to bring about this radical acceptance, helping the client accept whether you're pretty, ugly, fat, or thin. This is part of who I am. So radical acceptance is part of the beginning of therapy. If you can't accept, how do you go? How do you change, right? How do you become better? Very difficult. Then you can plan for your future. If your legs, the 4 legs are shaky, how do you plan for the future? So you see, having recovered from so-called depression and having discovered her wrong values and having published a book and finding comfort in religion, she's now ready to move on and plan for the future. Now, don't get me wrong, this is her way. You can have different way. It may not be religion. It may just be yoga. It may be meditation. It may be mindfulness. It may be a hobby. It may be starting a new business. Anything that can motivate you, drive you, lift up your spirit, and you can be transformed. Okay. Now, personality blind spots. One of the issues is we are not aware of ourselves. We are covered, right? With only one eye open. Some people have both eyes closed. They can't even know where they are going, right? So blind spot. Your client will come to you, and many of them will show their personality blind spots, right? I saw a doctor several days ago, right? When I quote case study, I would use composite case. A composite case is I will mix up the personal particulars. If she's male, I would say female. If she's from a large family, I would say from a small family. If she stays in the East, I would say stays in the West. So these will confuse you about the personal particulars because I don't want you to identify the person. Oh, this is my, Dr. Ang is talking about my neighbor, or Dr. Ang is talking about my classmate. I don't want you to identify. But the contents of the case is relevant for purpose of learning. For purpose of learning, right? If you don't have case sharing in terms of content sharing, you can't learn, right? But we will camouflage the personal particulars until you can't recognize who I'm talking about. This is to be fair to the patient, to your client. If you next time share his story, you must make sure you camouflage the particulars and only talk about the contents. Okay. One doctor came to me and then just married less than a year ago. She had been courting with the husband for 7 years, so total of 8 years. And husband is also a professional. I won't say what. And the husband is saying, I can't take it anymore. I can't continue this relationship anymore. I'm not happy, and I'm not going to spend the rest of my life all the time making you happy. That's not what I want. Very strange. For 7 years when they were courting, how come all these issues didn't come up? It's 1 year after marriage, then it popped up. And she couldn't understand. So she walked in, her father was sitting behind her, and whenever she said something, the father disagreed, the father would shook his head because she couldn't see because the father was behind her. So you can see the discrepancy, her description and father's response. And then she proudly proclaimed to me, Dr. Ang, I don't have DSM-5 features of depression. I am not depressed. And you don't have to diagnose depression. Wow, very forceful lady, ordering me, almost like ordering me. You can forget about me being depressed. And I don't fulfill the DSM-5 criteria for depression. Very forceful. So immediately I felt it. Wow, this lady is very forceful. So we all have blind spot now. We don't realize that you're here for help. And you don't straight away tell the doctor, you can exclude depression. I have other things, but not depression. Well, it just made me more curious. Why would you want to do that? So at the end of the 1 hour, it was quite clear she had features of depression. So you see, maybe she was so worried about being depressed. She was worried that I was going to diagnose her as depressed, as a patient with depression. So she immediately upfront said, you can forget about me having depression. It's quite interesting, beginning of the session. So what we have blind spots. Another example, CEO of a company in her mid-40s came to see me the first session, and she said to me, Dr. Ang, can we keep the session to 30 minutes? I said, that's fine. Because she was in a hurry. Secondly, Dr. Ang, can you not bring religion into the session? So I look at her, I say, religion? What makes you assume or think that I'm going to bring religion into the session? Where did you get it from? First request, I can grant you 30 minutes. But second request, you are making an assumption, you know. Then I was a bit taken aback. Then I just add one more sentence. I just added one more sentence. I said, you seem to have a tendency to make assumptions, right? And perhaps if you don't check your assumption, you don't clarify your assumptions, you act on your assumptions, and people around you may have difficulty understanding why are you acting on your assumptions. And it's not easy to get along, no? If you keep on assuming and you don't clarify your assumption. She was very perturbed. She was very perturbed. She stood up and said, Dr. Ang, thank you very much. And she just walked out and she never returned to see me anymore. Now, whether it was a revelation, I don't know. Or she continued to be in denial and would tell the whole world, this doctor I saw, a horrible doctor, told me off. I'm not going to see him anymore. That would be one approach. Another approach would be reflect on what the doctor had said and then work on the reflection. Am I the type who make assumption? Maybe Dr. Ang is correct. I go on assuming a lot of things. I'm the CEO of a company, who nobody there to challenge me. If nobody challenged me, it doesn't mean I'm right all the time. So there's some reflection needed on her part. So you see, an interpretation by us, later on when you are a counselor, when you give an interpretation, which was what I did, I say, you seem to be making assumption. And if you don't clarify the assumption, it's very hard for people to get along with you. That interpretation cost me a patient. She didn't come back anymore. So we go around, we encounter people with blind spots. And we ourselves, we have blind spots. Doesn't mean that we don't have blind spots. So the whole idea of personality theory is to help people remove their blind spots. Lady Gaga went to see a psychiatrist after so many years of chronic fibromyalgia. And she accepted the need to remove her blind spots. And she benefited from it. Okay? So now one classic example is the ex-president of the United States. 27 psychiatrists wrote a book edited by Bandy Lee. Bandy Lee is a South Korean working in America. And well, I think she's now an American citizen. And a year later, 37 psychiatrists jump on the bandwagon and say Donald Trump was a dangerous president. And then they talk about him being very impulsive, him being very hedonistic. Hedonist is a person who is pleasure-seeking. They just want pleasure. And sometimes their pleasure is at the expense of others' suffering. Pathological narcissism, that means I, me, and myself. I am. It's all full about himself. And when you are full of yourself, and when you are impulsive, you have a certain sense of paranoia. You can't trust people. And lastly, sociopathy. Sociopathy, or a bit of psychopathy, they are used interchangeably. Is you have defective conscience. You tell lies, you don't care about telling lies. Remember, she lied about paying a prostitute money, and his lawyer also covered up for him. His lawyer said it was me who paid the prostitute money, but actually no lawyer would just give money to a prostitute unless it's instructed by your client. So lies after lies. So this is an example of a man, perhaps with a lot of flaws, but not realizing his flaws. Well, I'm sure he's got his followers. I'm sure he's got his plus point. Perhaps his spontaneity. He tweets every morning, 20 million followers, and he always fired from the hip. No reflection, but a lot of reaction. And maybe a lot of people like that. Very refreshing. Suddenly you have a politician who is not from the Democrat or Republican. Well, he's from the Republican, but not the traditional politicians. And suddenly there's this breath of fresh air. Make America great again. Very confrontational. So this is an example of such a waste. You are so wealthy, no doubt. You are so-called successful as a businessman. That's questionable. And yet, you have blind spots. And no attempt made to want to change. Not like Sammy Cheng, the Hong Kong actress you saw, depressed for 3 years, realized she never spent time to look at her inner self, decided to draw, to sing, so to draw, to write a book, to come out of that state. And this is an interesting book. It's written by Mary Trump. Who is Mary Trump? Mary Trump is the niece of Donald Trump. And she wrote this book, and she herself is a clinical psychologist. Imagine your niece writing about you, and your niece is a trained psychologist. And it's here too much and never enough. How my family created the world's most dangerous man. So let's hear a little bit of the interview with Mary Trump.
I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
Mary, the subtitle of your book is How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man.
But the figure that loomed largest and darkest was their father, Fred, a successful real estate developer who valued winning beyond anything else.
Fred is the father. Fred valued winning at all costs. So you see the competitive spirit of Donald Trump. Where is it from? This competitive man must win at all costs. He's a developer. His only motive or aim in life is to make a lot of money and win at all costs.
At the center of all the dysfunction, all the problems, appears to be your grandfather, the president's father, Fred. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yeah, he is the origin, he's the ground zero of all of the family dysfunction, for sure. You know, I say this very straightforwardly in the book, and I stand by it. I believe that he was a sociopath. He had no real human feeling for anybody, including his children, and was quite adept at using people to his own ends. And if he found them not to be of use, he had no compunction about discarding them.
Was he a cruel man?
Yeah. Yes, he enjoyed humiliating other weaker people a great deal.
Through that sociopathy, are you suggesting that he crippled his children emotionally, especially his son, the president?
Yes, of course. That would have a negative impact on anybody, any children. To make it worse, so for Donald, when he was very young, 2.5 to 3.5 approximately, my grandmother, his mother, who was really his only source of human connection and comfort at that point, got very ill and was, to all intents and purposes, absent from his life. So he suddenly found himself so young, basically alone in the world, because my grandfather was incapable of filling the void left by my grandmother's absence.
You see, absent mother, right? And then the father was there to actually look after Donna. But I want to show you the next slide. How Mary's father is Freddie Trump. Freddie Trump was the eldest in a family of 5. And Freddie one day asked, Fred one day asked Freddie, son, you're the eldest in the family. I want you to take over the Trump empire. Freddie looked at Fred and said, Dad, I'm not interested in business. I want to fly the aeroplane. Fred said, why would you want to fly the aeroplane? You have a big business empire to inherit and you're not interested? Freddie said, yeah, Dad, I want to fly the aeroplane. And from that day onwards, Fred's would be critical of Freddie. Condemn Freddie. This is what I call CCC. Whatever Freddie did, even though it was right, Fred would condemn, or criticize Freddie. What do you think, class, would happen to Freddie Trump's self-esteem if you are subject to condemnation by your father all the time? The self-esteem would be very small, very low self-esteem. And how would a person handle the low self-esteem and the insecurity? Many ways, healthy and unhealthy. For Freddie, it was unhealthy. He started drinking. And he became an alcoholic. And he died at the age of 43. Alcohol-related problem. And that's why Mary Trump said, my grandfather destroyed two men in the house. One, my father, and the other one, my uncle. So this is a very tragic story. When Freddie decided to be a pilot, Fred shifted his attention to Donna, who happened to be the second son in the family, 8 years younger than Freddie. And Fred would PPP Donna. PPP means praise. Positive. A lot of praise on Donna. Donna can do no wrong because through Donna, vicariously in a way, Fred wants to be successful by making Donna successful. If Donna is successful, Fred would feel he's also successful. So because of this, Donald Trump cannot fail. So whenever Donald Trump went into trouble, Fred would be there to bail him out, to rescue Donald Trump. And so you see, one day, Donald's casino ran out of, was in need of cash, $3.15 million. Fred ordered an employee, can you bring $3.15 million cash into my son's casino? You buy $3.15 million worth of chips. You don't gamble, you just come out. My son needs the $3.15 million urgently, right? So this is how Fred went on to protect Donald Trump all the time. And that's why in the mind of Donna, there is no such thing as failure, because he never actually tasted failure. The father would be there to bail him out of trouble. And then the next thing you know is he's full of himself. He can do no wrong. He would blame everyone except himself if there's a wrongdoing. So what is PCP? PCP class is what I always say would bring about self-esteem. In our dealing with our children, in our dealing with our client, in our dealing with people, PCP is an approach. Start with a positive statement, then go on to be critical about the person, not judgmental, critical about the person. There's a slight difference. Critical is objective. The person can learn and grow from your criticism. Judgmental is subjective, not factual. It doesn't lead to learning and growing, right? So we don't want to be judgmental, but we want to be critical so that people can learn and grow. So that's C. And then always finish off with a P. A P is something positive, right? Positive. And this is valuable, very valuable in parenting. PCP is valuable in parenting, in helping someone with a personality problem. If you CCC the person is very negative, very soon people would not develop and grow, right? If you PPP the person, is spoiling the person will also not develop and grow. PCP is a method to help a person realize his weakness. But because it's cushioned between two positive statements, it is easier to stomach it, easier to learn from it, and easier to grow. So PCP. So in the example of Fred and Freddie, how does one do PCP? If I were Fred, role play, if I'm Fred, right? Now, if this is a classroom setting, I would do the role play in front of you, right? And I'll ask the class, how, if you are Fred Trump, how would you PCP Freddie? Okay. But we are doing Zoom, so I will demonstrate. So if I am Fred Trump, the first thing I would do, I don't know whether it's possible to open to the class or not. Have you all tried that? Open to the class and listen to you all. Is it possible to pause now and then gallery view and listen to the class? Is it possible?
Yes, Dr. Ang. They can just turn on their cameras.
Can turn on the camera and then can we do that? I want to get an interaction.
Sure.
How do we do PCP between Fred and Freddie? How do we open up? What do I do? I go to.
They will turn on the cameras by themselves, Dr. Ang.
Then the gallery mode. Oh, here.
It's
Yeah,
on
gallery.
the top right.
Ah.
Then you'll see side by side gallery.
I think that would be good. I want to know how do we.
Can you see
Okay,
them?
any response from the class? If imagine now you're Fred Trump. Your son Freddie come to you and say, "Pa, I don't want to be a businessman. I want to be a pilot." How do we PCP instead of CCC your son Freddie who wants to be a pilot? How do we start off with the first P, which is P stands for positive? How do we start off with a positive statement? When your son
I try. Positive
please
statement,
try.
is it?
Yeah.
Wow, looks like son, you have great dreams for yourself.
Critical, C.
But then this is not what I would envision your future to be. You are better than that. You shouldn't be a pilot.
Fred Trump told the son, a pilot is a driver in the sky. Why would you want to be a driver in the sky? Mocking the son, basically. So the first P is, wow, Daddy is happy that you have an ambition. You want to be a pilot. And actually, Daddy know, since young, you have this inclination. Wow, at least now you are putting into practice being a pilot. The C, let's talk about the C. The P is quite clear. Validate your son. Validate your son. Well done, son. At least you have an ambition. Well done, son. At least you want to be a pilot. Right? So the son feels validated. His interest in being a pilot is validated. So validation is very important. Whether you're a parent or a counselor, your client comes to you with problem. When you sense that your client needs validation, please feel free to validate. Don't flatter your client. Your client knows you're flattering if you're flattering your client. So validation. Okay, we cover the first P. Then the C, how do we approach the C? Come try. Ning Wong, try again. How you approach
I
the C?
try. Because I started by saying, wow, son, you really have great dreams for yourself. How would how would maybe I would say what are you doing now, or what will you be doing to attain that goal, and how would that how by attaining that goal would mean to the Trump family or business? Just get him to think that way.
Okay, that's one approach. Okay, any more views? Remember, you're criticizing your son. You don't want your son to be a pilot. You want your son to help you in the Trump business. So that must come out, because your criticism must come out. C is negative. You want let your son know, I'm not happy. You shouldn't be a pilot. So the C is, you shouldn't be a pilot. You should run my business for me. That's the C part.
Or maybe I would say that maybe I would say that but Dad feels disappointed that you would not want to think about carrying on our family business.
Yeah, that's another approach. That is disappointed. So you express your desire. I want you to take over, but you're disappointing me if you become a pilot. Anything negative, you can dump into C. C is critical, right? Negative. Then the third P, please don't forget there's a P, it's PCP. It's not just P and C. There's a third P. Let's see how we do the third P. Alvin Poon.
Yes, sir.
How do we do the third
I
P?
would say that I'll tell Fred that okay, but Daddy respects your dream, but you can always come back. If you find that it's not working out for you, I'm always here for you.
Oh, very good.
Yep, thank you.
The third P is instilling hope, right? If you can't make it as a pilot, Daddy is always ready to have you back. And you can also say, then Daddy will get your younger brother to take over. So the son will walk away feeling that you're not disappointing the daddy, right? Daddy has a wish that you become a businessman, inheriting his empire. Unfortunately, he can't have that wish. But Daddy is keeping the doors open. Now, question: if you practice PCP, you will not be conflicted. If Fred Trump were to practice PCP, whenever Freddie Trump is behind the pilot seat, he will not be conflicted. He will not have feeling of guilt that he had let his father down, because the father already expressed his desire and then wish him well, and you can come back anytime you want. The conflict only comes with CCC. You idiot, you numbskull. How dare you go and be a driver in the sky, it was so bad. Mary Trump, remember, the grandfather scolding her father, Then Freddie Trumps also cannot beat one Donald Trump. You know how bad it was. And Mary, remember, they went out to a restaurant for a meal. Silence when it was Freddie, Mary, and the grandfather Fred, three of them, while waiting for Donald Trump. The moment Donald Trump walked in, Fred came to life. Dear, wow. It was so obvious to Mary, that the father was looking down on her father. The grandfather was looking down on the father. So class, now you have a taste of what is PCP. Practice a lot of PCP, whether it is with your friends, with your colleagues, with your employees, if you're a boss, or with your children, if you're a father, mother. PCP leads to high self-esteem. CCC and PPP leads to low self-esteem. Anybody want to quarrel me with that statement? Okay, we'll pause here and then I go back to my lecture. Thanks a lot for your participation. And this is the first time I'm doing it. I didn't realize I can pause, open up the gallery and ask questions. It's very good. Now I will do it more often. Okay, I will go back to, what do I do now? I go back to my slides. Okay, I go back to my slides now. Can you all see the slides?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I park this one corner. Okay. Now, who is wait, who is this American radio DJ, Howard Stern? Howard Stern was from, or is from the radio, and he likes to badmouth David Letterman. David Letterman is from the television side, and every time will condemn David Letterman, either out of insecurity or jealousy, you know. And one day, David Letterman, having retired from the TV business, was engaged by Netflix to interview a few key people on stage. And then Netflix would like to feature all those interviews. They asked David Letterman, who would you like to interview? The first person was Obama, President Obama. The second person, Howard Stern. So they asked David Letterman, why would you want to interview your enemy? This guy always condemn you, always got nothing to say, good to say about you. Then David Letterman said, I want to know why is he so angry with me? I want to know why is he so negative about me? And true enough, Netflix arranged the interview. I want to show you the interview for you to understand what Howard Stern was like before he went for psychotherapy and what he's like after psychotherapy. And all this was brought up by David Letterman. David Letterman was spot on. This is all self-esteem, lack of self-esteem, spot on. And to have the courage to tell Howard Stern, this is your lack of self-esteem. And Howard Stern had the courage to remove his blind spots and to go for psychotherapy, in contrast to Donald Trump, right? Continue to have blind spots. So I'm showing you this to show that in order to remove your blind spots, you either go for counseling or psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is more intensive. That's about all. More depth and more intensive. You see, a lack of self-examination. Class, people come to you, your clients come to you. They want to reflect. They want to examine their lives. They want to move on. They come with symptoms, but you and I know they have an underlying personality. All of us have a personality, by the way, whether you like it or not. All of us have a personality. And it is our job as counselor to find out more about this person's personality. So I think Howard Stern's psychotherapist did a very good job of helping him to examine his life. So strange. I love you. I felt strongly about you. And yet, badmouth David Letterman. So you see, sometimes our action reflects our own inner psyche, our inner psyche. Their paths don't cross. One is from television, one is from radio. And yet, Howard Stern was upset, was jealous, and badmouth David Letterman. You see, the psychotherapy make him realize he wouldn't have been a good husband without the psychotherapy. I don't want to screw it up again. His first marriage, he had 3 daughters, grown-up daughters. So class, it's such a joy to get to know personality, the topic of personality. It's such a joy to help people remove their blind spots. It's such a joy to help people love again, to help people to fall in love, to feel secure in a relationship. You don't want people to screw it up again. And it's such a joy, right? So he decided, no, if I had not gone for psychotherapy, I don't think I would have the ability to love again, to be in a second relationship again. And now you know, there are people with failed multiple relationships. Very common in my practice, 33 years old, 5 failed relationships. One of them was toxic and one was codependent. So you can see that the personality plays a very big part in one's life. And that's why this entire module is 3 lectures long. You see the last line. Words don't mean anything if I say about people. But when people say about me, it hurts. You see the hypocritical approach. Class, why do I show you this? I'm showing you this to drive home the need to remove our blind spot. You have the printout, the HD PDF format. I'm just giving you the elementary. If you want more about Howard Stern, Google him. Go and look at his book and watch the entire video with David Letterman, the entire interview, okay? But it gives you an idea what Dr. Ang is trying to say, what I'm trying to say, that we need to remove our blind spot. And as counselor, we help people remove their blind spots. And what about we ourselves? We have blind spots. We are counselors. If we have blind spot, what do? That's why in the good old days, Freudian, Jungian days, when there's psychoanalysis, most psychoanalysts would go for their own psychoanalysis to remove their own blind spots. Then they can be effective therapists. So I urge all of you, ask yourself, what are my blind spots? By definition, I don't know, right? So I need to ask my friends, hey, what do you think is my weakness or are my weaknesses? And what can I do about it? And be frank, be sincere, because I wouldn't say enjoy, accept their criticism, because from their criticism, you can learn and grow. Then you can be a very dynamic counselor. The last thing we want is a counselor with blind spots or a psychiatrist with blind spots, not knowing their true self, their worth, not knowing their own reflection, their own reaction, or having a lot of defense mechanisms, which will come to next week. Okay, now I'd like to show this slide to drive home the point that Bill Gates saw a psychiatrist when he was 11 years old. He saw the psychiatrist for a year and a half. He was suffering from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. He couldn't sit still. He was restless, but damn creative, damn intelligent. And although his body is in the class, his mind is outside the window. That's why he called his program Windows, because half the time he's outside the window. He was very impressed with the psychiatrist. What did the psychiatrist do? Gave him books to read, discuss theories with him at the age of 11, and then make him learn 3 things. Number 1, think about things. Number 2, think a little differently. Number 3, focus appropriately. You look at Sammy Ching. Sammy Ching didn't see a psychiatrist. In that 3 years, she painted, she wrote a book, and she went to church. So the 3 things make her think about things, make her think differently. You saw the video, I see things from different perspectives, from different lenses. I don't just see from one lens. And the mind was focused appropriately. So what has this got to do with you as a counselor? You are actually doing a lot of this when you help a client. You want them to think, reflect about their life. You want them to see things differently, from a different perspective. And you want them to focus appropriately on the right things, isn't it? So that's what, most of the time, that's what I do with my client. Make them think differently, make them focus appropriately, okay? And after 1.5 years, he had never gone to see any more psychiatrists. And he benefited from the 1.5 years therapeutic relationship with a psychiatrist. So I want people who come to see you as a counselor to say that I benefited from the counseling session. I sent a patient who has got borderline personality disorder to a counselor. And then the next thing she told me is, can I change my counselor? I want another counselor. I said, what happened? That counselor is too young, too inexperienced. She's 45. I just can't, my patient is 45 years old. The counselor must be in the early 30s or mid 30s. I just don't seem to benefit from the session, right? Just one session. Then I refer her to another more senior counselor. And I saw her today and she said, I prefer this more senior counselor. Well, patient has a choice. So we want patient to feel comfortable with us, or client to feel comfortable with us. Now, in your handout as well, Kate Spade, was it depression or personality problem or both? It's so sad, huh? Okay, Anthony Bourdain, another sad story. When both Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain hanged themselves, they both had teenage daughters. I think one was 8 and one was 13. At the point of suicide, they somehow cannot think of all these positive things. When you are suicidal, actively suicidal, you are actually you're like a frog in a well, or you are in a narrow tunnel. You can't see anything beyond the tunnel. You can't see anything beyond the well, the four walls, the round wall of the well. And your mind is trapped and you just think negatively. And our friend Anthony Bourdain took his own life. And go and Google him. CNN food correspondent, traveled to 88 countries. 88 countries. Started as a kitchen helper, went on to write several books, and went on to be a world famous chef. He was so famous that when President Obama was visiting Vietnam, he could invite President Obama to dine with him in a small Vietnamese restaurant in Vietnam. That is the power of this man, the fame of this man. Please go and Google in YouTube, Anthony Bourdain with President Obama in Vietnam, having a simple meal. You can see how relaxed President Obama was, left-handed, enjoying his noodles and his beer, Vietnamese beer, and our friend chit-chatting away with President Obama. Such a waste, such a waste. A self-made man, what went wrong? I give you homework today. You go and do a little bit search on Anthony Bourdain, find out who was his last girlfriend, and find out as much as you can about the last girlfriend. And you, next session, next Monday, I want to start the class by asking the class, tell me a little bit about Anthony Bourdain's last girlfriend, and tell me your theory about what made Anthony Bourdain take his own life, right? So class, self-made man, so sad. What clicked and what didn't click? What was the thing that made him snap, right? So that's life, okay? Anyway, you're 17 years old. Recently, a 17-year-old boy took his own life. He was arrested by the police. He was charged for trafficking. The mother, a senior lecturer in the polytechnic, was very upset with the whole thing. 17-year-old, you can say that still growing, still developing, but not Anthony Bourdain, an established man taking his own life. Rick Warren. Who is Rick Warren? A pastor who wrote the book Purpose Driven Life, sold more than 10 million copies. His son, Matthew Warren, took his own life. And what did Rick Warren say? In spite of America's best doctors, best medication, best counselor, prayers for healing, the torture of mental illness never subsided. My son took his own life. And it's very sad, very, very sad. So I, being a curious psychiatrist, I wanted to know what is the personality of Matthew Warren. Matthew Warren was what I would call a vulnerable person because he was so brilliant, very intelligent. Brilliant is cerebral cortex, but his limbic system was very reactive. Whenever he entered a room, the limbic system picked up the 5 senses. The 5 senses are picked up by the limbic. And if you have an active limbic system, you picked up the 5 senses. Okay, you picked up the 5 senses. Cannot be seen, hold on. You picked up the 5 senses, but you are not able to process them okay, you are not able to process them. If you are not able to process them, you're not able to process them, picked up but not processed, you are going to live with the sensation that you have picked up. So he's got a gift for sensing who was most in pain and most uncomfortable in the room. And unfortunately, he had a history of depression and even suicidal thoughts. So here you are, hypersensitive, walking into a room, picked up all these 5 senses, what you see and what you hear or smell or taste or touch. And then especially hearing and seeing, and then get affected by it, and then not knowing how to handle it on top of your own depression. You are asking for trouble. So he took his own life at the age of 27. Even a church pastor, he took his own life and be careful. Okay. So in the end, all 4 legs are equally important. Okay. So I will stop here for a break. Now it's 8:20 according to my watch. Come back at 8:35. I've given you enough introductory slides to show you the importance of personality. And then we'll move on from here. Thank you very much. See you at 8:35. Bye. Okay, right. Let me carry on. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let's press on. Okay. The next slide is the difference between confidence and self-esteem. Confidence is outside, outer. Self-esteem is inner, inside. So when we say you're a confident person, we say that you are able to perform, able to do. So you are skillful, talented, you have the abilities and resources to do things. You're resourceful in doing things. So that's the meaning of confident. Esteem is different. Esteem is your self-worth, your self-identity, your self-image, self-esteem. So obviously between the two, esteem is more important. I rather want my child to have high self-esteem, because with high self-esteem, naturally, you are going to have high confidence. But the other way may not be true. You may be very confident, because confidence is an outside performance, outer performance. You may have lowish self-esteem. As long as there's a mismatch between confidence and esteem, you're vulnerable to develop emotional insecurity. You're vulnerable to have low self-esteem, and therefore vulnerable to a lot of psychological issues, anxiety, depression, panic attack. So the best is to match your esteem with your confidence. 100% confident, 100% esteem. But often it's very hard. Therefore, the greatest gift we can give to the next generation, our children, is self-esteem. Not houses, not cars, not money, but esteem. With the esteem, they can go and make more money, earn more money, have more houses and more car. So esteem is very, very crucial. Okay, confidence is also linked to the word competent. If you're highly competent in doing your thing, that naturally you are confident. So there is a correlation between confidence and competent. But there's no correlation between confidence and esteem. If you're confident, doesn't mean you have high self-esteem. The other way around, if you have high esteem, naturally you are going to be confident. Okay, let's watch this video to show you the difference.
Are 2 people within us. One of them is who we are, which is your self-image, and the other one is who we want to become, which is your self-ideal. To understand self-concepts further, you need to also understand both self-esteem and self-confidence. Self-esteem is how you feel about yourself. Self-confidence is what you do. Invincible people envision an ideal life. They also possess a positive self-image. Their self-esteem and confidence help them move forward and conquer any challenges. Therefore, you become an invincible person.
So, invincible person, that means you can conquer the world. Invincible is thinking, feeling, and behavior, action. So note this formula: how you think affect how you feel, And how you think and feel affect what you do, how you act. And you look here, esteem is how you feel, and confidence is what you do.
When you begin to think, feel, and act like one.
But this idea of the
Class, I know many of you tend to equate confidence with esteem. I hope after this series of lecture, you realize there's a slight difference. Of course, you may disagree and you continue to associate confidence as esteem. From my clinical practice, I find building self-esteem to be crucial. People with high self-esteem tend to worry less, no need to be perfect. They are not afraid of failure. They learn from their mistakes. And more important is they are able to have internal validation. People with high esteem, they don't require external validation. So these are the 4 things about people with high esteem. Now, there are 4 domains of emotional intelligence. And what are the 4? You have self-awareness, you have self-management. Okay, so these 2 is about the self, aware, which means including your blind spots, and self-management. And then the second component is others, aware of others, showing empathy towards others. And lastly, getting along with people, social skill. Many of us equate EQ to be just social skill. Social skill is only 1/4 of EQ. EQ have these 4 components. First 2 is the self. 3 and 4 is others. And so we'll skip this. In a normal situation, we will talk about what is personality. How do you define personality? We'll skip this for a while, but reflect about what is personality. How do you define personality? So when I define it later, you match your definition and my definition. This is my definition. Okay, is the way a person think, feel, and behave. Just now you saw in the video, I alerted you already. An invincible person is able to think, feel, and act appropriately or behave appropriately. So thinking, feeling, and behavior, the 3 key components of personality. Okay, you want a person to think positive, to feel positive, and to behave positively. Okay, that's the ideal. I always use the 5 finger to denote the bell curve, right? 20% are mature, 20% immature, 60% are average. Height, 20% are very tall, 20% not that tall, 60% are average, right? Even for IQ, 20% are said to be intelligent, 20% not so intelligent, and 60% are average. So it follows the normal bell curve for anything that you can think of. Extroversion, 20% are extroverted, 20% perhaps are not so extroverted or introverted. Most of us are, depending on the situation. Sometimes we talk extroverted, sometimes we don't talk introverted. So there's sometimes this combination that's going on. Now, it takes all kinds to make the world. This is an example of a very inconsiderate person parking using 2 lots. But before we judge this person, if I tell you this is just outside the A&E of a hospital, then you become less judgmental. This person could be in a hurry to send a family member to the A&E department and therefore has no time to consider to park properly. So context becomes important when you pass a judgment about a person. But if this is not an A&E department and this is just, there's a park nearby, this is the car park of a park, then you realize that this person is really inconsiderate. So the challenges of studying personality. The study of personality is complex because each of us is unique and no 2 persons are alike. You see, you look at your 5 finger, it's not 5 thumbs. High, tall, short, fat, thin. We're all very different. So that's called individual differences. As a result of the complexity, we try to understand personality rather than to explain it. Sometimes it just defies explanation. So before we even try to explain, let's try to understand. Okay. And while we understand, we try to look for meaningful connections, recurring themes in a person's life. Like I told you, the CEO came to see me. Straight away, the theme is she is fond of making assumptions. Please don't bring religion into the session. I mean, that's her assumption. This is her first session. If this is a second and third session, and she realized that I inevitably or invariably bring in religion, then she can make that comment. Then it will be critical of my session. Why did you bring in religion into the session, right? But this was the first session, and obviously she was a very judgmental person who liked to assume things without clarification. So please remember, we look for recurring themes, and there are a handful of recurring themes. For example, a controlling mother who likes to plan and control the child's studies or career, or even the child's close friends. So you get controlling mother. Absent father, not in the picture. The child grows up in an absent father. So that's a recurring theme. Procrastination, we talk about it, is a recurring theme. Being non-assertive, dare not speak up, bottling up is also a recurring theme. Fear of failure, fear of not doing well, another recurring theme. Okay, so we look for all those recurring themes, and then the connection. What is it connected to? Why is it affecting the patient now or the client now? So a temperament. Temperament is very much biological based. You're born with a certain temperament. You know, mothers discuss their babies. Oh, my baby is very nice, sleeps right through the night. Oh, my baby wakes me up at least 10 times a night. Very, very difficult to sleep right through. So the temperament of the child, the temperament of the baby. My baby, is very easy to handle. Mine is very difficult, very prone to the surrounding. A little bit only my baby would cry. Mine is very steady, doesn't cry unless it's a big event. So that's called temperament. Then with the input of environmental features, environment, character is forged. So character in a way is your inner strength, your inner character, right? Then we talk about personality. Personality is more an outer manifestation. It comes from the word persona. Persona is the mask we wear. This is different from the COVID-19 mask. This is the general mask that we wear, covering the eyes, just exposing, covering the face, just exposing the eyes. That is the personality, the outer manifestation. Character is inner. One example is courage. Courage is a character, right? This person is full of courage. With very courageous person. So the inner courage. Then personality, we will see a very spirited person, willing to fight for a cause, very outspoken, very dynamic. So there's a little difference between character, which is more inner, and personality. Most people, again, like confidence and esteem, they mix the two and say, oh, there's no difference. Character is no different from personality. But we do see a slight difference. Okay. So key features of personality is present since adolescence, is shown in different environment, and is consistent over time, recognizable to friends and acquaintances. So you can't run away from your friends. If you are the talkative type, if you are extroverted, it's very evident to your friend. Consistently, you are extroverted, recognizable to your friend. And whether you are in school or at home, you talk a lot, you're sociable, you engage people readily. That's you. So these are the key features of personality. Now, formation of personality. There you are. Temperament, very much linked to the genetic makeup of the person. Then with a little bit of environment, character is forged. Then over a period of time, personality is born. So personality is an outer manifestation, if you like, of the inner character. And then the environment, home, school, work. And the genetic material and the environment makes up the personality of a person, all right? So whenever you as a counselor, you see a client, please mention or try to understand what is the home environment like. And then you move on to what was schooling life like and what is working life like. The thing you want to look for is any traumatic incidents at home, in school, or at work. Any history of being bullied by people. Perhaps bullying other people, but that's normally they won't tell you if they're bullying other people. But most of the time is being bullied by others. Trauma, as you will see later on, play a key role in the formation of personality. In the case of Lady Gaga, she was so traumatized when she was young. She was ostracized, isolated, and it affected her personality formation. Very low self-esteem and very insecure. Okay, and then she was raped when she was 19. Yeah, all this shaped her personality. She, in my opinion, very confident on the outside, singing, dancing, but with a very low self-esteem, which was finally corrected by engaging in therapy. Okay, and of course it's stress. So this is called, in a way, a lifeline, the lifeline of the patient from young to working life. You find out more and more, and this is one way of engaging your patient. Let your patient talk. You record what is it like to grow up in this family, home life. What is it like going to school, and what were the factors at school that you can remember. We all know CCA play a part, co-curricular activities. Sometimes you may want to ask, not just the study subjects, but also on CCA. And some patients or clients will tell you their lives were shaped by their CCAs. As a scout, how it transformed their life, as a Red Cross member, as a footballer in the school. All these shape the person. So remember, you want to know, is there a pattern? Then you want to know any recurring themes in the growing up of this person. So sometimes in personality, you can't diagnose, but you can write a paragraph. You can write a paragraph about the person. Very, very important in the formation of a personality. Just to give you one simple example, I have a patient, again, a composite case, youngest in a family of 5, grew up in a home. The parents were selling at the time, in the 60s, were actually doing illegal 4Ds. And she grew up with fear, fear of the parents being arrested by the police, and then no more parents. And she was from a very poor family. Parents depended on selling illegal 4D to make a living, or collecting illegal 4D. And she remembered during her home already there was insecurity. There was so much fear that police would come and arrest her parents. In school, because she came from a poor background, she pretended to be rich. And people saw through her. You actually came from a poor background. Why did you need to pretend to be rich? And they ostracize her. They mock at her, laugh at her, and ridicule her because of the pretense she was putting up. And it affected her personality growth. So what I'm seeing now is a person who is very low in esteem, self-esteem, and a very diffident, very needy person who always complain of feeling empty, who is very lowish in mood and often suicidal, having suicidal thoughts. So that's how the personality was affected by home life and school life. Caesar Millen, okay, dog whisperer, very fond of dogs. And I just want to show a video clip. She talked about how it was like from childhood to adolescence and to adulthood. Two key take-home messages. First, at 13, she turned to her mother and said, "Mom, do you think I can be the best dog trainer in the world?" And the mom said, "Sure." And that's called validation. You compare this to Fred Trump telling Freddie Trump, right? You're useless, you're no good because you refuse to take over my empire. Here is a mother who validated the son. He went to America from Mexico without speaking English, and he was homeless for a while. And now look at his English and look at his career, right? And then the second turning point was acceptance. Acceptance that, you accept, you move on. You accept, you adapt, you move on. And surrounding himself with friends who can validate him, who can say, "Well done, keep it up, we are there for you." So remember, all these help to build esteem. Now, I want to talk about Stanley Lau. Who is Stanley Lau? He's got this passion for digital art. And you can see this man also contributing a lot to others, helping others to learn and grow.
I never differentiate myself as a person or as an artist. I just put them together.
You see, belief shapes behavior, or beliefs shape behavior. His belief is art is a lifestyle. His belief is that I want to help others grow. I want to transform others, change others. And now you get an idea that these people are very passionate in what they do. And I have a feeling of what I would call a transformational relationship. I have a feeling his students, his friends, when they interact with Stanley Lau, they always get transformed. You change, I change, we both change together. That's a wonderful kind of relationship, which I call transformational relationship. The opposite of transformational relationship is transactional. How much I can squeeze out of you, how much I can get out of you. Transactional, business-like. I don't care whether you grow or not, as long as I grow. Transactional, as long as I benefit. And that's transactional. When with Stanley Lau, I don't get a feeling. I think it's transformational. By helping others grow, he said he grows as well. Okay. Ways of describing personality, and there are many ways. Okay. What is the idea when we talk about the normal personality? It covers some of these areas. But before we go there, let's look at these three concentric circles, right? Right in the center is the self, S-E-L-F. The next circle is others. And then the third circle is the roles we play in life. Roles we play in life. Now you are listening to me, you are a student, right? But when you yourself, you may be a teacher in the classroom. You are a teacher tomorrow morning, right? You are in the class. Or you are parents to your children, right? So we all play different roles. And when you go home to see your parents, you become a daughter or son to your parents. The ability to play different roles well actually depends on how secure, how stable you are. And you are the core, right, in the center. the kind of esteem you have, how emotionally stable you are, and how secure you are. So those are characteristics of stable people right in the center. When you are like that, you can get along well with people, you will play your roles consistently well. So that's my model of self, others, role. And then when we talk about self, number one, self-perception, the ability to perceive yourself in a realistic way, not in a fantasy way, not in a unrealistic way. Adjustment, ability to adjust, adapt. Right? You look at Caesar Millan, ability to from no English to okay or good English, from homeless to have a home in America. Adjustment, autonomy, and he spoke a lot about freedom as well. Autonomy, like Stanley Lau, the freedom to do digital art, the freedom to transmit your message to the next generation. Reality testing, how firmly grounded you are. We don't want you to be floating in the air. That I wouldn't call a normal personality with a lot of ideas. Many of the ideas are not practical, right? Integration. Integration is the ability to integrate different fragments of one's life. Integration, to have a whole, wholesome, integrated personality. Self-identity, there you are. A lot of esteem is linked to self-image and self-identity. Self-actualization is Abraham Maslow's term, self-actualization, to reach the point where you have arrived. Self-actualization. Individuation. Individuation is Carl Jung's term, to be the individual you have always wanted to be, but no chance to be because you were poor, because you didn't have a chance to study, or because you were busily looking after your children. And now, past midpoint of your life, you're 45. Your children have grown up, you are more settled in your career, and then you can individuate. You can learn new hobbies, you can have new lifestyle, you can devote your time to help others, individuation. Or in a sense, it's self-realization. Individuation is like self-realization, right? So these are various ways we look at the so-called normal personality, okay? A better term would be a stable personality. There you are. Mature, wholesome, self-actualized, individuated, balanced, confident, open-minded, agreeable. These are various terms we use to discuss the so-called normal personality. Another way to look at the mature personality come in the form of an acronym, GROW. Ability to give up immediate gratification or delay immediate gratification. The sense of responsibility. A mature person is a responsible person. A mature person observes and learns from his mistake. A mature person weighs pros and cons and consider the consequences of his actions. This acronym, these 4 points come from reading The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. He wrote The Road Less several decades ago. And the whole book boils down to these 4 points, GROW, in an attempt to, by traveling the road less traveled, you actually toughening yourself, you're actually growing your self-esteem with your life. Yeah? I covered this a while ago. There are 2 spectrums from insecure to secure, and from low self-esteem to high self-esteem. And who are the people who are insecure? People who constantly worry, and they need assurance and validation from others. They have fear of failure, fear of not doing well, even fear of, they have fear of rejection. And lastly, there's a need for perfection in a very unhealthy way. I got friends, I got relatives, I got patients to tell me it's okay to be a healthy perfectionist. That means you're only wanting to be perfect in certain areas, healthy perfectionism. Not so they call themselves adaptive perfectionist, healthy perfectionist, versus a maladaptive perfectionist or an unhealthy perfectionist. So I think it's semantic. As long as you are able to cope, even though you have perfectionistic trait, as long as you're able to function even in the presence of perfectionism. Perfectionism mustn't affect you to the extent that you are insecure and you have low self-esteem, which is happening here. And conversely, the opposite is you're a very secure person with high self-esteem. You don't worry, you don't need external validation or assurance. You're not afraid of failure. There's no quest for perfection. All these will be on the right side of the equation. Now, I want to show you this study. This study is based on 75 years of research. And they actually, it was started in the 30s. Every 5 years, they will interview a cohort of Harvard graduates. And they discovered that good relationships keeps people healthier and happier, right? So it's not just about you as a person, it's how you relate to other people, okay? And the one speaking now, Robert Werdinger, is the 4th director of this study, and he's a psychiatrist. Let's hear what he's got to say about what makes a good life, good relationships.
Well, the lessons aren't about wealth or fame or working harder and harder. The clearest message that we get from this 75-year study is this: good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. We've learned 3 big lessons about relationships. The first is that social connections are really good for us, and that loneliness kills. It turns out that people who are more socially connected to family, to friends, to community are happier, they're physically healthier, and they live longer than people who are less well connected. So the second big lesson that we learned is that it's not just the number of friends you have, and it's not whether or not you're in a committed relationship, but it's the quality of your close relationships that matters. It turns out that living in the midst of conflict is really bad for our health. High conflict marriages, for example, without much affection, turn out to be very bad for our health, perhaps worse than getting divorced. And living in the midst of good, warm relationships is protective. And the third big lesson that we learn about relationships and our health is that good relationships don't just protect our bodies, they protect our brains. It turns out that being in a securely attached relationship to another person in your 80s is protective. That the people who are in relationships where they really feel they can count on the other person in times of need, those people's memories stay sharper longer. And the people in relationships where they feel they really can't count on the other one, those are the people who experience earlier memory decline. And those good relationships, they don't have to be smooth all the time. Some of our octogenarian couples could bicker with each other day in and day out. But as long as they felt that they could really count on the other when the going got tough, those arguments didn't take a toll on their memories. So this message that good, close relationships are good for our health and well-being, this is wisdom that's as old as the hills. Why is it so hard to get and so easy to ignore? Well, we're human. What we'd really like is a quick fix, something we can get that'll make our lives good and keep them that way. Relationships are messy and they're complicated, and the hard work of tending to family and friends, it's not sexy or glamorous. It's also lifelong. It never ends. Many of our men, when they were starting out as young adults, really believed that fame and wealth and high achievement were what they needed to go after to to have a good life. But over and over these 75 years, our study has shown that the people who fared the best were the people who leaned into relationships with family, with friends, with community.
So it is very important that besides self, ability to get along with others is also a component when we talk about personality. So let's dwell a bit on relationship. A is for authority, B is below the authority, C is control. If you are in 100% zero relationship, there is 100% control. 90-10 is 80% control. 80-20 is 60% control. And all indicate it's an unbalanced relationship. Okay, like teacher-student relationship. Ex-teacher jailed 4.5 years for sex with student. I think that's an example of a teacher is in authority, and then the student, right? If you don't treat your student with respect, and then you take advantage of your position as person in authority, then you are in trouble. Okay. IMH psychiatrist suspended for affair with patient. So again, you abuse your authority, exert control over the patient, you end up in this kind of problem. This is a very interesting case. Law professor Tay was jailed for 5 months for committing a reprehensible act, morally reprehensible act, by going to bed with his student, Miss Koh, and he appealed the sentence, but before the appeal could be heard, he decided to go to jail first. And when he came out of the jail and he went for his appeal, he actually won the appeal. So he could have waited for his appeal before he decided to go to jail. And on what ground he won the appeal? He won the appeal on the ground that Miss Koh was above 21. Miss Koh texted him 3 times, "I love you, I love you, I love you." So it's adult relationship, consenting relationship. So he was legally right because Miss Koh was above 21. Miss Koh texted him 3 times, "I love you," but morally wrong because you are a lecturer, you are higher authority than your student. So the judge say he was a man without honor and he had abused his position as a lecturer, and he should take a long, hard look at himself. This is a very interesting case. I want you to be mindful of this case because one can be legally right, but still morally wrong. And if only he could have been more patient or have more faith in the system, he didn't have to go for the 5 months jail. Right? He could have just waited because he won the appeal. Okay. So to sum up, the best is 51-49, where you only have 2% control. And then with lots of compassion. So in many relationships, it can't be 50-50. Doctor, patient, it cannot be 50-50. Unless the patient is healed, no longer the doctor's patient, they can become friends and then can be 50-50. Boss and worker, right? It can never be 50-50 unless the boss treats the worker as on par with him. So most of the time, 51-49 is good enough. When you're 51-49, you just have the 2% of control. Teacher, student, the same. You want to be close to your student, but there is a boundary. But you don't want it to be so wide that you actually have so much authority and control over your student. You just want to have it enough for you to be in control and to show compassion. Unlikely you're going to achieve 50-50. That's impossible because as a teacher, you still have the 2% control. And this is the so-called 51-49 relationship in many relationships. For husband and wife, the best is 50-50, equal relationship. We don't want one party to have 2% control over the other party. vice versa. We want to be 50-50 for husband and wife. For many other relationship, I would call this 51-49. And certainly we don't want 100-0. If it's 100-0, there's total control. The student, the nurse, the worker would have no say, right? Okay, then we move on. Personality traits. These are enduring patterns of perceiving, relating, thinking about oneself and the environment, exhibited in a wide range of social and personal contexts. Okay, so what you saw just now about relationship, you can't run away. When you talk about personality, it's not just about yourself, it's also about relating to others, perceiving, relating, and thinking about oneself and the environment in a social context. It's not just about you personally, it's also about others in a social context. And again, you have perceiving. Perceiving is what comes to your limbic system, you perceive it. And then you reflect on it, you think about it, okay? And that's your traits. Again, the word is recurring or enduring patterns. So Hippocrates talk about the four humor. And basically, it is not widely used, but we still describe people as melancholic, prone to sadness and prone to depression. We still once in a while say choleric, angry, irritable person. Sanguine, very rarely we talk about being sanguine. We will just say hopeful and cheerful. Phlegmatic, very slow, very apathetic. So these are attempts to describe personality traits. And this was one of the earliest attempts, dividing into four humor. Humor is almost like liquid, blood, black bile, yellow bile, and phlegm. And I just give you an idea historically, how do people make an attempt to understand each other, okay? Understand personality. This is one example. Now, I move on to the modern one, a modern day one, and that is the Big Five. The Big Five is very important. Try to understand it, try to know it a bit more than others. And the acronym is OCEAN, OCEAN. You can Google tonight about the Big Five. You can do the Big Five test for yourself as well. Okay, O is openness, how open you are to new ideas, new experiences. I denote the closed mind as like a clenched fist. I denote an open mind with my open 5 fingers. This is an open mind and this is a closed mind. When your mind is open, you bring in new ideas, new experiences. When your mind is closed, you are not accepting new ideas or new experiences. C is conscientiousness. The word conscientious means hardworking. So you are dutiful, you are dependable, you are orderly, okay? So conscientious is how diligent you are, okay? And then E is for extroversion. Extroversion is outgoing. So you're warm, you're gregarious, you're the soul of the party, you are assertive. You don't bottle up your feelings, you are not shy, right? You are extroverted. Agreeableness is a very wonderful word. Agreeableness means I agree to enable you. I agree to empower you. So these are people who are altruistic. Altruism means serving others, community spirited. Compliance, they are people who agree when it's time to agree. And therefore, because of their agreeableness, they are well liked by people, easily liked by people. Who likes a person who is disagreeing all the time? Nobody wants, right? Neither do we like somebody who's agreeing all the time. You don't learn from that person. Everything is okay, 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 okay. But agreeableness is in between agreeing all the time and disagreeing all the time. It's in the middle. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I disagree. But most of the time, I am agreeable. When it's for me to agree, I'm agreeable to empower you, to enable you, enable you. So if you score high on OCEA, you are indeed a stable person. You have a stable personality. But don't score high on N. N is neuroticism. Neuroticism just simply means you are neurotic, you are highly anxious, you are self-conscious, you are vulnerable, then neurotic. Don't let people call you a neurotic. Neurotic means you are a worrier, you are anxious, you worry a lot, you are so self-conscious, you always are very sensitive of what people say of you. And as a result, if you are neurotic, you are vulnerable, easily shaken, easily susceptible to influence, easily break down, vulnerable. So I want to score low on N, but very high on OCEA. The Big Five has been validated, tested, and found to be correlated to, say, leadership skills. Found very well to be correlated to management skills. People who score high on OCEA, but low on N, make very good leaders, make very good managers. Because you want a leader to be open, to be hardworking, conscientious, to be extroverted, to be outgoing, and to be able to reach out to the population, to the citizens. And agreeable, not completely agreeing, but not completely disagreeing. Agree with you to empower you if you deserve to be supported. Disagree with you if you don't deserve to be supported. If you have outrageous idea, I disagree with you. So these are great leaders, and they are not anxious, not self-conscious, they are not vulnerable, so they have low neuroticism score. So it's very fashionable, one of the best used, commonly used in this modern world now. And Jordan Peterson has even run a course on the Big Five personality. You pay about $90, I think, and then you are exposed to 8 lectures. Jordan Peterson will give 8 lectures on the Big Five factor. And first of all, you pay the amount of money, you can score your own Big Five: open, conscientious, extroversion, agreeableness, and neurotic. And then they will write a paragraph about you, and then you can attend his lectures online, but you need to pay the money. So that's a Big Five. And I have another slide here: high and low, open or closed. If you're high on openness, you're imaginative, you're curious, you're reflective, you're creative, you're sophisticated. Opposite is low: unimaginative, uninquisitive, unreflective, uncreative, unsophisticated. And then C is conscientiousness. If you are high, you're reliable, practical, hardworking, organized, careful. If you are low, you're sloppy, unreliable, lazy, disorganized, and negligent. Extroversion versus introversion. If you score high on extroversion or extraversion, outgoing, bold, talkative, energetic, assertive. Similarly, if you score low on extraversion, you're withdrawn, timid, silent, reserved, and shy. And agreeableness, if you score high, you're warm, kind, cooperative, trusting, and generous. And if you score low, you're antagonistic, very cold, unkind, uncooperative, suspicious, and stingy. Lastly, neuroticism versus emotional stability. This one, you want to score low. You don't want to be a neurotic. You want to be low on your neurotic scale. You want to be stable, relaxed, contented, imperturbable, not easily disturbed, and secure. Opposite, if you're high on neuroticism, very tense, unstable, discontented, irritable, and insecure. So class, if you need to do something, you have to learn something very well about traits, learn the big 5 traits. It's fashionable, is widely used. So if you want to master anything at all about traits, the big 5 is worthy of your mastering. Then you have Hans Eysenck, factors of personality. Basically, he reduced all into 3 factors: extroversion, neuroticism, and psychoticism. We have covered 1 and 2. 3 is not so much you are psychotic, but in the form of being aggressive and being impulsive. And that's Hans Eysenck's factors of personality. Okay. Then you have Raymond Cattell, who came up with 16 factors. I know this was at one stage very widely used in the human resource area. When they employ people, they make them go through the 16 PF. At the end of it, they write a paragraph about you. And then whether you are employed or not, very much depend on how well you do on the 16 PF. So I won't go through all the 16. I will highlight a few. One of them is warm. How warm, outgoing, and easygoing you are. Then emotional stability. How stable, adaptive, and mature you are. Liveliness. How animated and enthusiastic you are. Social boldness. How venturesome and socially bold you are. Abstractedness. How imaginative, how absorbed in ideas you are. The opposite of abstractedness is concreteness. People who are rigid, 2 + 2 = 4. They're very concrete. They don't have high abstractedness score. Abstractedness means they are imaginative and able to have all kinds of non-concrete, vague ideas. Okay. And there you are, number 13, openness to change, open to change and liberal. Okay, and number 15 is perfectionism. So that's another 16 PF, another attempt to describe personality, right? And I remember Raymond Cattell, you have to answer about 500 questions. So at the end of the 500 question, it's reduced to 16, the 16 points that you see here. Okay, then you have other types, like Zuckerman. Zuckerman is famous for his sensation-seeking type. Then you have Rotter. Rotter talks about locus of control, internal or external. A successful person has very strong internal locus of control. Very little is dependent on external event. In a way, it's like internal valuation, internal value, how you validate yourself, internal validation. And then we know there's a cerebral versus the emo type. Emo is feeling. We know feeling is to do with the limbic. We'll come to that later. And thinking is cerebral. So thinking versus feeling. Are you the thinking type or are you the feeling type? Many of you would have known about the Myers-Briggs type indicator. Myers-Briggs type indicator contains 1 pair, thinking and feeling. Out of 16 possibility, 1 pair is thinking versus feeling. Okay. So yet another attempt to describe personality. Some based on 1 factor, sensation seeking, Zuckerman, or locus of control, Rotter. Some based on 16 factors. So you have 16 PF. Some based on 3 factors, right? And then you have the 5 factors. of personality. So all these are various attempts in describing personality. Right? If I say you're a cerebral type, that means you always use your brain, very logical, very systematic, very rational, but you don't have feeling, you don't have EQ, you don't show sympathy or empathy, okay? And of course, your DSM-5, which we'll do on the 3rd week, DSM-5 diagnosis of personality types. So we have covered 62 slides. Next week, we'll talk about maybe we can cover a bit of biological, and then psychodynamic, humanistic, behavioral, and finally cognitive. I have 10 minutes left. I can pause here for questions. If you don't have questions, I will straight away go to biological. Okay, now we open up for question. Any questions so far pertaining to the 62 slides? Yeah.
So can I ask about the difference between individuation and self-actualization? Because you mentioned that they are kind of similar.
Yeah. Individuation occurs after the midpoints of one's life. To be the individual you have always wanted to be, but no chance to be. Self-actualization is throughout one's lifespan. Some people self-actualize very early at 35 years old. Some people actualize very late. I see them as almost attaining nirvana, no? Attaining a state of bliss. And the colloquial term is having arrived. You have arrived. You have no more needs or wants, no? You have arrived. Oh, needs you have. Everybody have needs, but you have no more wants. W-A-N-T-S. Class, what's the difference between needs and wants? Who can help me and answer this question? Wants and needs. Juliet Xia, you want to try? What's the difference between wants and needs?
Needs is like something that is required in your life that actually is essential for you, for your growth and your personal life. But one is more like something you would like to have. Is doesn't necessarily be something that is very beneficial for you, but it can be as well. Yeah.
Very good.
So
well done. Clap, clap. Well done.
Thank you.
Very good. Needs are biological needs. We need to eat. We need to sleep. Needs are biological needs. All right. We need to have 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day. And for those who do intermittent fasting, maybe only 1 meal a day. So needs are essential. Wants are very different. If you have already one computer, right? You want 2 more computers. The 2 additional computers are called wants. But maybe you need 1 more for your work. So you have 2 computers as needs because you want to track some movement. You need a separate computer, right? So the second computer can be needs, no? But if you have 4th or 5th computer, then it's really, really going to wants. Handphone, at most you have 2 or 3 handphones. But if you have 4 or 5 handphones, that 4 or 5 handphones become wants. Car, how many cars can you drive at any one time? Maybe the first 2, 3 cars are needs, you need to have car. But beyond 4 or 5 cars, those become wants. So in individuation, in self-actualization, you are talking about wants. You already more or less fulfill your needs, is going for the wants. So to me, is you have arrived. You have satisfied your needs. Abraham Maslow put it very well. Your biological needs, we'll come to that next week when we talk about the humanistic approach to personality. Fulfill your needs, your safety needs, your needs for belonging, your self-esteem needs. Then you talk about self-actualization. Okay, next question.
Hi, Dr. Ang. My name is Alvin. I'd like to go back to slide number 40.
Number 40, you stop me.
Yeah, now it's 50, 48. Yep. This is no. Too much. You got to go a little bit forward. Yep, yeah, this one. You at the bottom left hand corner, you mentioned about genes and temperaments and all.
Yeah.
Would you like to elaborate on that? You are saying that our temperaments is really attached to genes, or what sort of role does it play?
Genes, temperament is heavily influenced by genes. That's what is, I draw the link there. Temperament is very much linked to genes. For example, some people are very soft-spoken, and they have been so soft-spoken since young. They just cannot raise their voice. So by temperament, they are very soft-spoken. Some people are very aggressive. Every word is a no. They're very aggressive. So by temperament, they are the aggressive type. They're verbally very aggressive. Temper. Some people flare up very easily. The temperament, they're very, that's one example. Another example is impatience. I have patients telling me, I'm very impatient, Dr. Ang. I've been like that since young. So by temperament, they are very impatient. They want things fast. So that is, to me, very much linked to the genetic makeup.
So if this is the case, you're saying that, are you suggesting that it is inheritary?
Yes.
So a serial killer will have a serial killer kid. Is that what you're trying to say? Or somebody is, you know,
serial killer involves conscience, the sense of right and wrong. And conscience, I don't think it's temperament. It is developed through character, through personality formation. Values, conscience has a lot to do with values, the sense of right and wrong. Your schooling, your upbringing, your parenting, and all these contribute to whether you're going to be a serial killer or not.
So if this is the case, that means you've got angry parents where you will get angry kids.
No. Unless both are angry, then they themselves are prone to anger management. Both are like that, then the likelihood of the child becoming like that is very high. But it's not necessary, because your temperament, as I say, can be shaped by your environment, and your character is forged. So if you are lucky to have siblings or friends or nephews or nieces who are not like that, or when you go to K1, K2 or primary school, you have friends who are not like that, then they can help you change. Yeah.
So can I say that temperament is also not only genetically inclined, but also more or less conditioning?
Well, if it's conditioning, then it becomes character. It's conditioned by the environment, then your character is formed, is forged. Temperament is, in a way, your innate approach to the world, your innate quality. You can see, some people are very docile, very docile. They dare not speak up. They don't want to speak up. By temperament, they rather keep quiet. They are the quiet type. Some people, every damn thing also, they raise their voice. Everything also, they have something to say. Tough. I know, Alvin, thanks a lot. The temperament, character, always very hard to tease out. Personality is easier. Personality is persona, what we wear and what we show to the world.
Okay,
Next
thank
question.
you so much. Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, Dr. Ang.
Yes.
I'm here. I just want to just build up on what Alvin asked. I'm wondering if then the environment changes, can your personality change throughout your life as well?
Yes. I show you about Howard Stern, right? He was very foul with his language, always use 4-letter words and always condemn David Letterman. So through psychotherapy, which is a form of deep counseling, if you like, he was changed. He said it was self-examination, he could change. The Hong Kong actress I showed you, Sammy Cheng, changed after 3 years of hibernation, changed. So it's removing our blind spots, how much we want to remove our blind spots. And therefore, That's why we are counselors. That's why we are doctors. We want to help people change. If change is impossible, then our job will be very dull, right? We can't help our people to change.
In that case, right, then if they do like the ocean test before and after, would there be like differences in the scoring in that sense?
Ocean, the OCEAN.
Mm-mm.
Ah, very good point. I expect the end to change. If you have been very neurotic, I expect after you discover about yourself, you know how to cope better, you should be less anxious. You should be less vulnerable, all right? And you should be less self-conscious, you know? So it's possible. That's why the whole area of personality is so exciting. The reason is everybody has a personality. And it's a matter of degree. I think all of us are abnormal in some way, including Ang Yong Guan. We're all abnormal in some way. We cannot be perfect, right? There's no perfection. So I think the whole idea is to be aware that we can have blind spots, to be aware that we may not know things that others know. So we need to be in touch with our unconscious, questioning ourselves all the time. What is my motive? What's my aim? Why am I so eager to help this person? Later on, you will know about counter-transference, you know, my feeling about my client. It's called counter-transference. The feeling my client has about me is transference. So when the CEO told me, don't bring in religion into the session, my counter-transference is one of negativity, you know. Why you make assumption? So I reacted. Maybe it was a mistake to react. But if I told myself, like, if I don't do so, who is going to give her feedback? Then maybe I reflected, I should have given feedback a few sessions later. So I exposed my own counter-transference, my own inability to contain her statement. If I had contained it and interpret later, maybe she wouldn't run away. Well, we all make mistakes. That's life. And we learn from our mistakes. Next question.
Dr.
not,
Ang,
yeah.
can I just clarify the AB2C thingy, the relationship? Is that just about the adults, right? As you mentioned about teacher and students, but how about juniors? I mean, you know, minors? Is it also 51-49 kind of ratio?
Nin Wong, very good question. A lot of bullying in school, it is because of the discrepancy, you know, in authority. I told you about my case, right? Her parents were selling illegal 4D. So she was living in fear of police raiding the house. And then when she went to school, they were bullying her. So it's peer, they're all same class, but they treated her like 20%, 5%, 10%, and they were 80%, 90%. They were very authoritative or authoritarian towards her, no? Instead of treating her 50-50, because same class should be 50-50, they were actually bullying her. So Ning Wong, you're very good, because bullying cannot be 51-49. You still can, but 2% harder. But if it's 80-20, 90-10, 100-0, very easy to be bullied. If time permit, next session, I tell you how a cult leader in Singapore, a cult leader managed to mesmerize one girl until the girl left her house for 5 months, you know, went to rent a place, and every day listen to this so-called life coach, you know, in the name of coaching her, telling her you cannot go back to your family. Your family is toxic, has negative influence on you. And our project is for me to help you. If you go back to your family, you spoil the project. And there's 100-0 already. Mesmerized until not only her savings gone, you know, also refused to acknowledge her family. When her father came to her rental flat, pressed the doorbell, she saw the father through the pinhole. Texted the father, didn't want even to open her mouth, texted her father, go home. I am not ready to see you. So we can be mesmerized by a cult leader until it's 100-0. You go to YouTube, Jonestown, the Jones, James Jones make 900 people swallow liquid laced with cyanide. 900 people died, you know, because Jim Jones asked them to drink liquid with cyanide inside. That's 100-0 already. You are so frightened of this leader until you got no more say. So that's why this topic is so important. You must have strong personality to withstand all this cult, all this negative influence. And the cult leaders are very good. They know who to target. They target vulnerable people, people who are yearning for self-growth, people who are vulnerable, people with high neurotic score. No? They know how to target this group of people. Next visit, if I have time, I'll tell you. Very interesting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. See you all next Monday. Thank you.